Hello, welcome back. So this is where we got to at the end of the last video, and we had one LED connected through the breadboard, through the cables to the Uno board. So the whole point of using the breadboard is that we can use lots of LEDs or lots of components all together. So let's have a look at how to do that. So I've got my got a green LED here, and we're going to put this into the breadboard. So of course I need to know which is my ground and which is my positive leg. So the ground is the shorter one, and just to keep things simple, if you remember from the previous video, we had, well, now we have our ground on this side, so I'm going to just keep it the same as that. So I'm going to put the ground that way round and find somewhere, let's move these out the way. I'm going to keep it on the same line. It doesn't have to be on the same line. I'm just doing that just to keep things looking neat. So I'm just going to put it there, but it really doesn't matter exactly where you put yours. I'm just trying to keep things neat and lined up. There's no reason that these have to be on the same line because they're not connected that way at all. Great. So now I would need to use my jumper cables to connect this up. So let's just have a look. Which one was the positive? Okay, it's that one there. That's our positive that goes to a number. So I'm going to put this cable in there. So it's lined up along here. Remember, it could be any of these holes, doesn't matter. Just going to put it there so it's neat. And this needs to go to an output on my board. So let's have a look at the board. So let's just go to number 12 then. Be the next number. So in our code, we will use the output 12 to turn on or turn off this LED. So that's that part done. Now, of course, we need the ground. So our ground pin is this one along this line, and I'm going to put it just next to that one just to keep it neat. Could be there, could be there, but I'm going to put it there. And this needs to go to my ground. So let me look at the board, and here we have a problem. I already have something in the ground port. So we're kind of back to the previous problem that we had. I can't get two pins in there. So how do I solve this? Okay, we'll go back to the breadboard, so think about that. Now, if you remember, we have these longer connections down on the bottom and at the top. And it's this that I'm going to use to help me with the ground problem. I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to put it into there along the blue negative line. Again, that doesn't really mean anything. That line is just there as a guide, a reminder to you. Underneath it's all just metal strips. So I'm just going to put it there next to the blue one just to help me remember. And then I'm going to do the same for the pin that was in my Arduino board. So that's this one that was in the ground. And I'm also going to put that along this blue line here. It doesn't matter which of these. Underneath, these are all connected. But to keep things neat, I'm going to try and keep it lined up. So that's in there. So what do I have now? Well, from both my LEDs, the ground pins are now connected to this blue line here. So we've got from there, and we've got the jumper cable coming here and going into there. And the same, we just remind ourselves, I have a look at that, the ground is over this side. So that's this cable, and that is being taken into here. Because remember, there's a gap there. So to join from this line over here, I need to use the cable. So both of my ground pins, which are those, are now connected along this blue line. That actually means they're also connected to each other. So now I need to get one connection that takes both of these into my board. So I'm going to need another wire, and all I have to do, well, I'm going to start off, let's put it in the board first. So I know it has to go into the ground connector there. So that's in the ground. And now I need to connect both of these to this. Well, how do I do that? Simply by putting this anywhere along this line, the blue line. So it really doesn't matter where I put it, as long as it's somewhere on here. Could be in there, because remember, this whole line is connected. That's the top line, and I'm using the blue line as a guide, as a reminder. So in that way, I've taken my ground pin, connected it to this long strip along here, connected from both of my lights along this strip, and taking both of those connections through this cable into the ground connector on my board. So in that way I can plug many things into one ground connection. Okay, I'm going to connect this up to the computer and we'll have a look at it all working. So I've connected the board to my computer with the USB cable, and I'm still using the same code as before from the last video, and I'm going to upload that, and let's have a look at what happens. Okay, well, we only have one light flashing. So why is that? Is there a problem with our connections? Well, this one must be connected fine, and it must be connected to our ground, otherwise it wouldn't be working. If I remove our ground connector, we can see it stops flashing. If I put it back in, it's flashing. So why isn't this one flashing? Well, in the code, we never told it to do anything with our number 12 output. We only told it to make number 13 go high and low. So we now need to head over to the code and tell it to do something with our number 12 output. Now this is the code that we wrote in the first video. If you remember, we had defining the word red, so making a variable as number 13. So that means in output number 13 on our board, we've got the red LED. But this is just any word that you like. This is just a name or a label. It doesn't have to be red. It doesn't know that it's red. So that's just for the user, for the person writing the code, to help them remember. This is the important thing, because that it does understand that it's number 13 on the board. And we've told it down here in our setup, that's the pin mode, that red, which is meaning number 13, that's an output, because we're putting a signal out, turn that light on or off. We're not taking anything in. So that's fine. Then we had our loop, and we had our digital write, and we told it red, which is the thing plugged into 13. We told it to be high, so on. Then a delay, we waited 1000 milliseconds or 1 second. Then we told it to go low or off, and another delay. And because it's a loop, this whole part goes round and around. So that's why we had the light coming on and off, on and off. Great. So we did that for number 13. So we have to do something pretty much the same, but this time we want to do it for number 12. So I'm going to define, and I'm going to say green. And if you remember on the board, we plugged it into number 12. So that's why number 12 is there. This is just a name, could be anything. Then in our setup, we need to tell it what we're doing with that number 12 port, which I've called green. So green is also an output. Oops. Great, so now it knows that this is also an output and that this means number 12. And then in our loop, I'm going to come down here and do the same thing, but this time for green, we'll say high. And after our delay, so after it's been on for 1 second, we'll do the same thing again. And for the green, and we will say low, and then it will wait 1 second and it will loop around. So if we run this on the board, we should now see that both lights are blinking on and off. So let's head over to the board. Well, first actually let's go to our upload. So we'll upload it and then have a look at what's actually happening. Great, well that appears to be working. As we said in the code, we now have both lights flashing, and as far as the computer is concerned, both lights mean number 13 and number 12, which is what we put into the code. So our code is working, our new connections are working, where both lights are connected. I turn this round. Both lights are connected to this line here, which we're using for our ground line. Excellent. Now I just want to show you how, to some extent, whoops, it doesn't really matter where you put these cables. So I can move our ground one. This is going to the ground on the board, and I can put it there. It's still working. And I could put it there. It's still working. I could put it in between those two. It's still working. So now we're seeing that this whole line is one thing. It's all connected. But if I put it down here on the red line, nothing happens because this is not connected to that top line. So I really need to have that there. Again, with this connection, so this one which is leading to the ground pin, that doesn't have to be here. So if I take it out, the green light stops, but if I put it in there, it's working again. I can put it in there. So anywhere along that line, everything is connected. You can plug in anywhere you like. But it's a good idea to try and keep things as neat as possible. The more things you plug in, the messier it gets with all these wires, can begin to get confusing. So it's good to try and keep things as neat as possible. So that's how we can have at least 2 lights connected to our board. We can do the same with 3 lights, but at the moment we've got them blinking on and off at the same time. We might not really want that. So before we move on, I'm going to go back to the code and think how we can make some changes to the code to get some different effects with our lights. Now we're back over at our code, and it's this loop that we're really interested in. So the loop starts off with both red and green being high, and that means they're both on. Then we have a delay. We wait 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. Then both red and green are low, which means they're off. Then we have that delay and the loop starts again. So that's why we had this effect. Both lights were on together, both lights were off together. Let's try switching things up a bit. I'm going to have the green light off when the red light is on, and then the green light on when the red light is off. So let's upload that and have a look at the changes. So now we can see the difference that code has made. The lights are now taking it in turns to go on and off. So when red is high, green is low. When green is high, red is low. So by changing the code a little bit, we've managed to get a different effect on our board. Okay, well that's 2 lights. Now let's add one more light to this. Alright, well I've just disconnected from my laptop so I can work more easily. And I'm going to add another red LED to this. Now, I like to try and keep things neat, basically so that I can remember where things are supposed to go. So if we have a little look, which one was our ground? Well, I can follow that because I know that this is leading to the ground on the board. So that means this yellow leads to the ground, which is this side. So that means this is my ground pin. And if I lift it up, we should see that is the shorter one, which it is. So that means I've got my ground on this side. So I'm going to do the same with our new LED. Again, can put it anywhere. I'm just going to kind of put it about there with the ground over on this side, the shorter pin that side. So let's put that in and let's get this connected up. So as we're talking about the ground, let's deal with that first. Turn things around. Let's go. So move these out the way so you can see. So this is my ground pin here. So I'm just going to go somewhere along this line, along there, and then this has to go, do you remember where? It has to go to my ground line that I've set up here, following that blue line. So I'm just going to put it in there, and that's joined my others on this ground line, which is going to the ground on the board there. Okay, now I need to do my positive. So we'll take another cable, and obviously this is the positive leg just there. So I'm going to plug in just next to the ground, and this needs to go to an output on my board, and well, I guess we'll go for number 11 as it's the next one down. So this red pin is now connected to the output 11 there. Great, so that's my 3 LEDs connected up, and now we have to head back over to the code to get this one lighting. Right, we're back at our code again, and this was where we left it. We had the red one high, then the green one was low, then the red one was low, the green one was high. But now we've added a new red light. So back up to the top of our code, and I have to define that. Now, I've already used the word red, so I can't use the same name again. So I'm going to call it red 2, and I'm going to do that in writing. Now, something that's very common in coding is that if we're having a second word, we start with a capital letter. So I cannot use a space when I'm giving a name like this. This is a variable. I can't put a space there. I could write it like that, but to help people see that that is 2 words, we use a capital letter there. So small at the start, and the next word is capital. It will work if you don't do that. You can do that, it will work. But this is just something that programmers like to use. Now, where did we plug that in on the board? If you remember, we plugged it into number 11. So down in our setup, we have to do the pin mode, and we're using the red 2, and that's an output. And in our loop, now we just have to decide when do we want that light to come on and go off. So to begin with, I think I'm going to have the two red lights coming on together. We'll have a digital right. Now red 2 is going to be high. Oops, high. So that means my red and red 2 will be on. And after the 1 second delay, we'll have our digital right, and my red 2 is going to be low. So our two reds will come on together and they'll go off, and then the green one will come on. So of course we'll upload that and have a look at the effect. Great, so you can see the effect of our new code. Both reds coming on together and then the green comes on. So we're actually starting to make quite a nice little pattern. And there's a lot you can do now. You can add another LED. I'm not going to show you how to do that. If you want to put another LED in, you should be able to do that for yourself. But we are going to head once more back to the code, and I'll show you one more thing that we can do there. Okay, this is the last thing that we're going to look at in this video. So at the moment in our loop, we have the two reds, red and red 2, high, with the green low. Then we have our delay, and then the two reds go low and the green goes high. So I'm just going to change this around. What I actually want is I want the first red light to be on, then the green light, then the next red light. So let's have a look at how we can do that. So from the beginning, red is high. That's what I want. But I'm going to put another delay in there. In fact, what I'm going to do, so we don't get too confused, I'm going to get rid of everything else. So back to the start. So first thing that will happen is that first red light will be on, then there will be a delay. After that delay, I'm going to turn that light off. So that same light is going to turn off, but with that, I'm going to turn the green light on. So we have, first of all, that red light is on for 1 second. After 1 second, that red light turns off and the green light turns on. Then we're going to put our 1 second, 1000 milliseconds, 1 second delay in. After that, I'm going to turn that green light off. So that green light has gone off, and I'm going to turn on the second red light. So digital right, our red 2, I'm going to turn that one on. So we've got the first red light comes on, then it goes off, and the green light goes on, then it goes off. Then the second red light goes on, then we need our delay again. Now at this point, the loop will begin again, but before that happens, I need to turn this second red light off. So digital right, red 2, set it to low. Okay, we'll run that and have a look at the effect so you can really understand what's going on here. So there we have it. Our code is turning on the first red light, then the green light, then the second red light. So we have this kind of chain effect. Now there's a lot you can do. I suggest you try adding another LED, then adding that to the code and playing around with the different light effects that you can achieve there. So have fun with that, and I'll see you in another video soon.